Yeah, well, that does happen during the process. A lot of people think that embalming is something that the Egyptians or the ancients, Chinese used to perform, and they're often quite surprised to hear that embalming happens on an everyday basis. So most persons who enter a funeral home, when I say most persons who enter a funeral home, are deceased persons, I'm talking. Unless there are some reasons why they shouldn't be embalmed. If they're really badly burned, obviously there's no really point in embalming them. If their family don't like the idea of their loved ones going through the embalming process, although they're a bit ignorant as to what goes on, they just don't like the sound of it, and it could be a special request. Does anybody have any ideas why we're embalmed?
To preserve it as well.
Yes, that's what the embalming process is, that's right. In fact, a dictionary will tell you about embalming, to preserve a corpse from decay. So you smack on there. But the main reason is for hygiene. When a person dies, the blood in the body will cause decomposition over a very short period of time. And one of the main reasons for embalming a person is, as you probably all know, that when somebody dies, you'll probably find that this service doesn't take place until perhaps a week later. Now, if the body wasn't embalmed and then it was taken to the service 7 days later, it'd be a pretty horrific experience, I can assure you. Secondly, everybody who enters a funeral home, again, as a deceased person, 9 times out of 10, they will be viewed by the family at some time or other, either prior to the service or even on the day of the service. So obviously it makes the body a little more presentable and obviously less stressful and upsetting for the family. They can look into a box and see a nicely laid out relative at peace, rather than mouth open, eyes all dried up, and like something out of a Hammer or a horror film. So the reasons are obvious, for why we embalm them. And who does it? The embalmer. People consider a bit of a freak sometimes, but we're talking about a very skilled person. There's several years of training involved in practical. There are yearly exams held with the Federation of Embalmers in various regions, and all the information for the academical side of the embalming exams are contained in one book by a gentleman named E.F. Scudamore. It's a very thick book with very thin pages, and I know I tried to get into it myself. I was training as an embalmer. I became quite proficient in the practical side of it, but when I tried to get my head around this, the technical data, it was really awesome. So I say, a lot of people consider embalmers to be a bit of a freak, but I say they're very skilled people, and they also earn a lot of money for obvious reasons. There are two types of embalming. First of all, we deal with what I call the straight embalming. There's a complicated embalming and there's a straight embalming. Basically what that means is the body hasn't been the subject of a post-mortem or any severe injuries. What we have is a perfect body intact. So the first thing, we remove the blood. Now, we have a little apparatus here. No, it's not an apparatus, it's an accessory, if you like. It's made of surgical steel. It's called a trocar. It's 18-inch hollow tube in length. It's got a knurled handle, which attaches to a clear PVC pipe. This pipe is also connected to a tabletop pump, suction pump. Now what you do with this trocar is this is inserted into the chest of the deceased person, and the holes, 1 inch just above the point there, you try and locate them into the heart. By watching the fluid passing through the clear tube, you will soon know when you've hit the blood supply in the heart. It's going to dark red, obviously. And this then draws off fluid from the body. Now, whilst this is going on, this trocar is in position, and blood is being drawn from the body. The embalmer will raise an artery, and it's normally the femoral artery in the thigh. This is preferred by embalmers. It can be done with other arteries, but this is the preferred one by embalmers. Now, artery is located, it is raised and inserted in 2 pins which holds the artery proud. And the needle, this is a little enlargement of the needle here. It's got a bulbous end because you fasten the clear PVC tube over the top of it. It's inserted into the artery.
Is that a hollow needle?
This is a hollow needle. There's a hole in the end there, you see, and a hole at the top. And the pipe pushes over the top of the needle. It's a needle about sort of 5 or 6 inches in length. Much thicker than a needle would normally use for injecting fluid because they're not really concerned about what you're doing to them. That's inserted into the artery and clamped off. It has a plastic tube connected to it, a PVC tube, which contains the embalming fluid. Does anybody know what the embalming fluid is? Any ideas at all?
Formaldehyde.
Yes, you've got it, John, that's right. It's formaldehyde. Oh, yes, it's on overhead. Oh, cheat. Yes, formaldehyde. This is also connected to a desktop pump. Now this is going in under pressure, an even pressure, which matches the suction on the trocar. So you've got one pump pushing and one pump pulling. This is basically the embalming process. It takes about approximately 20 to 30 minutes to complete. During that time, the embalmer is monitoring the colour of the body and looking for little areas where perhaps due to burst blood vessels or veins, a certain area hasn't been covered, and he may have to work on that particular area externally. This takes away, I don't know if you've all seen, obviously during the course of your service, you've got dead bodies, and they have this purple blotchy where you've got coagulation of the blood, it comes to the surface. This is all totally removed, and although they do look a little pale, it is a more natural colour, and as I say, maybe a little bit more presentable for the family and the relatives. Once that the body has been embalmed, you will go on then to make them a little bit more presentable. I'll go on to that just shortly. I mentioned earlier a complicated embalming. Now this, whereas a normal embalming takes 20 to 30 minutes, a complicated embalming would take 2 to 3 hours. If you, for instance, have somebody who's been subject of a post-mortem, we all know what happens there. A pathologist may remove the liver, may remove the heart, to examine sections of it for cause of death, remove the brain. It's obvious that when you inject the body then, if you were to inject the body in the normal way, once the fluid in the blood reached severed arteries and veins where these organs were removed, the fluid would just run everywhere and you just wouldn't achieve the aim. So what you have to do is open up the stitching that the pathologist has left you with, which normally runs from the pubic bone just below the base of the neck. Once you have the stitching open, you remove the sternum. You will often find this has been done by the pathologist to get access to the major organs. If he hasn't, you have the necessary accessories available to you to do this. By cutting around the sternum, you can get at all the internal organs. Now, you remove all the internal organs, all the intestines, and virtually what you do, you're cleaning up the trunk, the main trunk, and the main torso of the body. The job then is to pick up all the veins and arteries and inject formaldehyde manually into all the limbs and the head area. It is a little bit more complicated than what I am explaining to you at the moment. But you have to know all the capillaries and arteries and all the veins and the certain areas of the body which they affect. This is why I mentioned earlier, it is a very, very skilled job, very time consuming. So our persons are now embalmed. Now we have to make them presentable for their audience, or their family and friends, for when they're being viewed, prior to the service and on the day of the service. They're washed. The gentlemen are shaved. I don't know if anybody know this, but after you pass away, your hair still grows. You could have a shave, have a heart attack, and 2 days later you're still going to need to get a shave before you go in for make your last public appearance. on the ladies, you try and put a bit of colour in the faces. I know it sounds a bit silly, but you try and make them look a bit more presentable. Quite often, the last vision a person will have of the deceased person is when they're at rest in their sort of coffin or casket. The mouth presents a problem quite often. If Mark, would you do me a little favour? Could you sit out here a moment? I just want to illustrate something.
I mean, like a big mouth.
The mouth presents a problem when you're laying a person out to make them more presentable, because obviously the jaw naturally drops open, and you can't have that when somebody's coming to view a relative or member of their family. Now, will you? I won't put my fingers in your mouth, Mark. Don't worry. Will you turn your top lip up? I'd like to show the class something. Can you all see there's a piece of skin here in the dead centre? We've all got it. It joins it at the lip to the top of your gum line. Will you do the same with your lower lip, please, Mark? And there's another one there. All right, on the lower lip. Can you all see that? Stick at that. There are muscles located under these points. Now, what you do when you have a person laid out on the table, we use upholstery needles. You've all seen them, curved needle with ligature. And you pass the needle up once inside the top lip to one side of this muscle, and you come out through the nostril, quite high in the nostril. All right. Then you return in the same nostril, but pass down on the inside of the lip on the other side of this muscle. So now that you have a piece of ligature which goes both sides of this muscle. Drop your bottom lip again, Mark, please. You then take this upholstery needle and pass under that muscle. Alright, on the lower lip. So then you can draw these two pieces of ligature together, tie them off, and the jaw will close with this fellowship. And you just tuck them away, Vaseline across the teeth, just make it a little bit sticky, push the lips together, and you have a nice, as natural as you're going to get, appearance on the lower jaw. Secondly, is the nose. Somebody mentioned fluids, loss of fluids earlier, which is a good point. It is a big problem. Especially when the body has been embalmed, sometimes the fluid going in under pressure can cause blood vessels to rupture. You can get fluid coming from the nose. You don't want things like this for the family. So, these have to be stuffed. We use cotton wool. It's small, just you know, take the end. And Mark, I'm not going to do this to you. I just wanted to see the look on your face. Thank you, Mark, for your assistance. Okay. The nostril, just for better illustration, I wasn't really going to put this up Mark's nose. And that's fed then into the nostril. Actually, in the embalming process, I found that one of the most unpleasant jobs because of the awful noises the singing in the nose would make as you were doing it. No chance of any fluid coming down your nose. The mouth is presentable. The eyeballs dry and they become sort of concave. So we put eye caps. Now these are, if you like, picture cutting a ping pong ball in half, only they're slightly smaller in diameter than a ping pong ball. Apply a little Vaseline under the eyelids, a little Vaseline to the top, pull the eyelids together, and they will take and that will stop the eyes opening. Because these things, if you don't think of these things, they can happen when the body is being viewed, and the family run out to the viewing room screaming because it's just eyes open. So, and you may laugh, all these aspects do have to be covered. Okay, right, so we have our big day, right, it's the burial, or cremation, whatever the family have chosen, alright? Have any of you ever assisted now at a burial in the way of burying? Karen, yes? Have you ever assisted in the actual lowering of the box? Yes. If you have, you will know that, well, the funeral directors will discourage the family from taking any active part in the burying or the lowering of the box into the grave, because if your timing isn't right, it can become a bit of a farce. If the box, these graves are cut and they're very tight fits, because obviously the grave digger doesn't want to dig out any more than he has to, which is quite understandable. It's a hard job. And if the box isn't dead level as it's been lowered into the ground, it tilts slightly. As you know, if you tilt it, the dimensions of the clearance will alter, and you get all sorts of things happening. You get the members of the family will fall in, You'll get the box and get stuck halfway through, halfway down. You've got a funeral director jumping up and down on the box trying to plant it, and it's not very nice in front of the families and relatives and friends. Cremation. Now, people have some funny ideas about cremation. One of the most common questions asked is, you're all right, John. Do they leave the jewellery on? No, because that leads to corrupt and improper practices at the crematorium. Do they burn the box or do they just burn the body? The body goes in the box. A quick check in any funeral home, if you want to know if somebody's going to be buried or cremated, you feel the handles. If they're warm, they're going to be cremated because they're plastic handles with chrome paint. Let's do a quick test. If it's cold steel, chances are they're going in the ground. Now,
So sorry, do they burn the boxes? Huh?
yes, the box goes in, all complete, yes.
Such a waste that really, because I mean we've got the Green Society now and all the use of timber and things like that. Why can't they just have like a, well I'm not saying why, has anybody any ideas on why they can't have like a line out from the
I can foresee a time will come when natural resources are in such demand that this sort of thing will happen. But at the moment, this is why I did mention earlier that when this funeral director, it's the smooth guy is talking him into buying the sort of £300 Canadian redwood casket, just bear in mind it could be going straight into the oven, and it really is burning money. And at the end of the day, what are you doing for? You're only doing it to make the family feel better. We go on to the personal views on this outlook you get about death. When you're working in the funeral directors, you were dealing with just torsos. You can't treat them as people, otherwise you couldn't do the job properly. You do get this sort of outlook. Yeah, it's just something to bear in mind when you're being talked into these purchases. Yes, they all go in at the present time straight into the furnace.
Tom, before you go on,
Yes.
are there facilities available to hire this?
I don't believe so. I can't say 100%, but as to my knowledge, there are no facilities for hiring of coffins. It's maybe an enterprise little business to get into, actually. You could set up next to Days, perhaps. I'm going to show you now the basic setup inside these furnaces. All right. Now this is a standard crematorium furnace. You have a door with a little eye hole in it. It's just like a kiln, if you like, on a larger scale. And the box is rolled in. And these 3 gas ports. These are quite considerable. They're 10 inches in diameter. Well, I haven't seen all furnaces, crematorium furnaces. In fact, but this is pretty standard. This is what you would have in Thornhill in Cardiff, which is quite a popular crematorium. You have 3 large gas ports. As I say, the box goes in. It has plastic fittings, even a plastic nameplate to allow for this. A complete burn takes 20 minutes. And when you consider the ferocity of these gas ports, when you hear them start up, they really are awesome. There's a terrific roar. The heat they produce is just awesome. What is left at the end of that 20 minutes? The coffin is gone completely. It falls through the rollers into ashtrays, large trays, below the coffin. And what you are left with is just the charred skeleton of the occupant. All right. At the end of this process, you're left with the charred skeleton of the occupant. Now this is what is crushed at the crematorium and put into an urn. So when you do get your relative in the urn, you know that this is all in. All right. You haven't got a piece of you haven't got the charred wood and what have you, because the bone will not disintegrate. It will only char. Yes.
Just on that point there, I mean, somebody once said to me that if you've had somebody that suffered from leukemia and had radiotherapy,
Yes.
chemotherapy, that they don't burn very well.
No, I can assure you that anything that goes into that furnace burns. Yes. I say the heat in there is so intense under these 3 large gas ports. there's nothing like at all apart from charred bone. These bones are removed, placed in a large machine. And I will say this for them, they do always strive to get the right ashes into the right urns. It means a lot to some people. You probably all know the woman who kept her husband on the shelf over the fireplace, and people were flicking their ashes in it all the time. She looked at him and said, "George, you're still putting on weight." Well, just to summarise now, we've covered the arrangements, the role for the fuel director, the environment, what happens at the other end, burials or cremations. Are there any questions at all on what I've said?
Yeah, what happens to the blood?
What happens to the blood? That's a good question. It doesn't go into the drainage system, as you might think. If you've seen the tables used in post-mortem rooms, they're like elongated sinks with channels and they have sinks at the end. But these things don't run into the main drains. The blood is disposed of chemically because of the obvious things. You're dealing with people here who could have all sorts of diseases and viruses, and it's disposed of. It's mixed with chemicals and disposed of. I think it's incinerated there as well. Yes. One of the biggest problems I found was remembering that when I put the sternum in the sink and I finished cleaning out the body and I returned all the insides. They are retained actually. You don't dispose of those. The insides that you cleaned out from this trunk prior to the embalming process, kept in a black bin bag. You put cavity fluid in that, which makes it solidify within minutes. So you put the bin bag into the trunk of the body, press it flat, sew the body back up, and then that solidifies. So you've still got the weight of the person there, and you've still got the support of the torso. You would sew them up then, which is quite a lengthy process.
So did you take the inner organs out on every occasion?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Tom.
Yeah,
Carry on.
Sorry.
Did you take the inner organs out on every occasion?
That's right. No, not on every occasion, only if they've been the subject of a post-mortem examination. The straight embalming, if you remember, you just inject it in the body and the fluids and the blood circulate around the body without any problems. So that there's no need to remove the organs on those occasions. What I did find annoying the odd occasion when you've sewn up from the base of the neck down to the pubic bone, a regulatory 5 stitches per inch, and you go to wash your hands, as you let the sternum in the sink, so you have to open them up again. Are there any other questions on what I've said?
I was wondering, there's near the reckon for washing the windows.
Oh, yeah, but
the grease that comes from
yeah, that's right. That's right. It probably would get carried out in a few
You know
minutes.
what's an actual chemical air talking the people go to them the open curtain
Yes,
and then they
yes.
go. It doesn't actually get burnt then. Is it
No,
like
no.
stone for burning?
Not there and then, no. You'll probably find it, they will be burned within half hour or so of that. Yeah. It's taken from there to another place where, because these furnaces, as I say, they're raw, they're so old. I mean, they are a little distance away from, it's normally a chapel you're in, isn't it? A little bit away from there because of the noise and what have you.
So how many would you have burned at once?
Well, they have it in the crematorium 4 in the room. I've never seen them all. It's a little bit like windows in your bank. They're never all working at one time, but they'll probably have two going at a time, because the average service in the crematorium is about 20 minutes, half hour. They're normally a little service after the main service in the church, you find. So, say with a clean burn, about 20 minutes or so. They'll probably have about 2 going at a time.
What do they do with all the ash they collect then?
I really don't know what they do with that. Perhaps they've got some agricultural use for it, but it's. I'm sorry. It's charred wood ash, and they probably find some sort of output for it, I should imagine, because it would really accumulate. You're talking for quite an amount in a busy week.
Do you ever get strange requests? I mean, like something unusual at the old meeting, burial at sea or...
Yeah, Yes, this happens. You have, like I mentioned earlier about persons who don't really like the thought of, they want to be buried, they don't like the thought of being
I just
cremated.
don't think I could fudge you.
No, that's right. So they will have zinc coffins with glass tops and
Yeah, but I mean, in your experience, have you had any sort of
you have
straightforward
certain Arab religions where they were buried in a standing position with a box is on it. Yes, that's right. Yeah, actually, that's a good point. That's quite a lot.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Yes,
Are you going to be cremated or buried?
I'm going to be buried. I know you don't know anything about it, but having watched a clean burn cremation from start to finish, I decided there and then I'll take my chances with the worms. And I think it's a much nicer way, more ecological.
If you, the embalmer, would he prepare
Sorry, I missed.
the embalmer, would he totally prepare for a burial at sea? Or-
Yes, yeah, they will do, yes. Even with a burial at sea, if you imagine all the handling involved with this dead person,
Yeah.
the embalming process still has to go on.
Do they put something, I believe that...
They're weighted.
Yeah, they're weighted.
Yes.
Do they put something on those weights on the body to say that it is a burial at sea? Because I mean, living on the coast, I'm sure you do, Daniel, there have been occasions when bodies have been washed up, and there are bodies that have actually been buried at sea. And of course, initially, when people get washed up with weight train, it causes lots of problems.
When they were prepared in James Summers for burial at sea, they were in like heavy nylon canvas bags with a considerable weight on the end. They were in the nylon because they wouldn't rot. They would rot after a long period of time. And by that time, the body contained inside it would have decomposed and rotted long before it, and it would retain the weight in the bag there. And there's a certain distance that burials at sea will take place. So I think the likelihood of one being washed up, or these days, I mean, perhaps they didn't take the necessary precautions in the early days, but these days it's highly unlikely that a person who's buried at sea could be washed up on the shore because of the distance and the precautions they take. Well, I'm going to give you all a little insight, and that's really all it is, into what happens to somebody when they enter their funeral home. If you have no more questions, we'll conclude there. I just hope that you found it enlightening. Thank you.
Who's it?
Ready when you want one?
Hi gentlemen, again, no need for any introductions, I'm sure. I'm going to give you a little talk now on the training of a dog for man work. I'm going to cover taking a dog from a raw recruit right through to what I consider to be the end product, a dog which is a capable man work dog for mainly operational purposes and which is considered a priority, and also trials work. First thing I'd like to discuss is the capabilities of the dog, just to emphasise the importance of what this man work is all about. Mark, what are you, about 200 pounds in weight?
Yeah,
That being a rough estimate?
I'm assessing it.
Good one. All right, then. All right, Dave. Let's see. You're roughly about the same weight as Mark.
I wouldn't have thought so.
Yeah, I mean you're a bit bigger in frame, I suppose. Consider a bit more height.
Yeah, well,
Trying to be- trying to be diplomatic.
Possibly on 40 and a half stone.
Possibly, yeah. Well, you get in the region of sort of 200 pounds. Stand up, just to give the boys an idea of the message I want to get across. All right. Picture Dave now. A healthy, lump of a fella, quite muscular, in the region of possibly £200